This is Jack Doyle. He's in charge of communications in Downing Street. Now, we have a bit of a breaking news story that was just released now by Politics for All on Twitter. Now, this guy was recently-ish been appointed to be in charge of all these the PR stunts and dealing with the press and media, because the guy is from the Mail, so Boris and his side thought that he could do a good job. And the story that we have now, as I said, Politics for All got this exclusive thing saying that number 10 head of comms, Jack Doyle, is calling up senior journalists to essentially tell them to stop writing stories or even mentioning Carrie Johnson. Now, we know that we have freedom of press. Now, so press and media outlets are allowed to write any story that they want, as long as, of course, it's not slander or libelous. We get that, but they usually follow the rules, because otherwise they go to court. They are allowed to even talk about gossip. They're allowed to talk about policies. They're allowed to criticize governments, support governments. They could do whatever they want, as I said, as long as they're not doing anything illegal. According to Downing Street these days and the comms team, you're not allowed to criticize the wife of the Prime Minister. It kind of is a very, very similar story that we've had from a certain palace that had a couple of, the dukes and duchess who now ran away from the UK because they want to have a quiet life out of the spotlight. Yet they're always in the front of magazines with the publicity stunts and going out making speeches and making Netflix deals and Disney Plus deals. This is the same situation right now. They can do what they want. You're not allowed to criticize or talk about them. Firstly, Jack Doyle is the same guy who was accused by Dominic Cummings. Whatever you think of Dominic Cummings, he was accused by Dominic Cummings back in April 2021 that the ex-Fleet Street journalist Jack Doyle is the number 10 official. He was in charge of the leaks, according to Dominic. Now, we know that there was a massive problem in Downing Street. It's still going on, but especially when Cummings was still around, and all the chaos and all the negative stories that were coming out, the leaks. Again, people like Cummings say that it was a Jack Doyle and his side. There are others who accuse other people, and we had Lee Kane, who was in charge of communications at the time. But we know that some of them did not survive. Those who remain in Downing Street, people like Jack Doyle, we don't really know much about him. Ordinary people, ordinary voters don't know much about these people. They're behind the scenes. They just work in the background. They're not politicians. And they're appointed. But if we want to have transparency and accountability in politics, maybe it's best to slightly reform the system, the way central government works, because we don't want any corruption. We don't want any cover-ups. We want journalists and media people to be able to criticize anyone who's in the position of power, especially if they do influence policy. Now, speaking of press and media, if you want to support independent media against mainstream media, who these days are generally biased, and there are multiple channels and outlets who are trying to challenge that mentality, definitely check out mytousi.co.uk. We have the full shows and podcasts, the sort of topics that we can't really post on this site on YouTube because it will get censored. Check out the website, join us, and together we will make media great again.